And now, more of the Joe Peterson Insurance Gators Radio Experience, presented by Lynn Benton Tractor on 1430 KYKN. And now, here's Gator and Denise.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Hour 2 starting now. Hour 1 is wrapped up and in the can, and according to intern Curtis, yes, indeed, it is up on the... What? Oh, wait. Hold on. It's actually not on the...
It's not?
There's been a slight delay, people.
Are we having issues?
There's a slight delay. Be patient with us. KYKN.com. It will be there as soon as him and the computer tech guy can get that all squared away. Podcast goes up, and it is there for at least 30 days. You can listen to the show at your leisure. Download it as you like. Now, a little over a week ago, the Oregon GOPs had a little gathering. Denise, of course, being a elephant. I meant politically speaking.
What?
I meant politically speaking.
I'm retaining a little water today, but my gosh.
Guys, make note. Things not to say to a lady.
Yes, I am a Marion County GOP delegate. Yes, so we had the delegate selection committee or convention. Was it last Saturday? Week before this past Saturday. Yep. And it was an 11-hour festival of fun. And
Festival of fun?
Yes, I'm being...
That's not what you were texting me during that day. Okay.
Oh, my Lord. Luckily, we had air conditioning. Anyway, as we were counting some of the ballots, there was an opportunity for some people to go up and take the stage and kind of share their thoughts. And one of those people who did and who had, I think, a powerful impact on the audience there was Leslie McMillan. And Leslie is joining us today in the studio. Welcome, Leslie. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Denise. And it's good to be here with you and Gator.
Well, Leslie got up, and a lot of us kind of sat there going, I did not know that about you, that you are related to Ambassador Chris Stevens, who was murdered in Benghazi in 2012. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what your relationship is there and what you shared with our audience?
Yes, it's maybe not well known even in Oregon that Chris has deep roots in our state. And in fact, his grandmother and my father were sister and brother, and they grew up in Redmond and went to the University of Oregon, got their degrees. Their roots also go very, very far back to the earliest pioneer days and the Indian days, the Chinook Indian days of Chief Comcomly and so forth.
Wow.
And so Chris's heredity has given him a certain strength, and I can't say that it is something that we always think about, but there's something about pioneer stock in Oregon that can give people a certain understanding of how to live.
Yeah. Well, I understand that he had a long history in the sort of the diplomatic corps, and the last time you had seen him was in 2010?
It was. My husband and I, at that time, were living in New York. We were serving among Russian-speaking immigrants for 16 years. And we heard that Chris's mother, my cousin, would be in town in D.C. So I contacted Chris and said, hey, let's get together. And it turned out we were also down there for another project. Mm-hmm. And we had a nice little lunch at a coffee shop, which was part of a bookstore in D.C. It was his favorite little place. Mm-hmm. He was there at the time for the National War College. He almost never was really in the States because he had been serving in these Middle Eastern locations since about 1991. So we hadn't really had a chance to see him for a long, long time, but that was a good time.
Was that because he had an affinity for the culture, and would he choose those, or was he stationed or selected to be there?
He was, once you get an area of expertise, I think they just keep placing you in those locations. They had to move around a lot. That's part of the rules of the State Department, that people can't stay in one place very long. Mm-hmm. So he was in Tripoli before. Oh. He was in Jerusalem. He was all around the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And then when it came time for the decisions to be made regarding Libya in 2011, he was the natural person to go to send to Libya to scope things out. He still had contacts there. And after that, he became the ambassador.
So fast forward to September 11th, 2012. Can you walk us through when you found out what was going on and what was going through your mind?
Yes, at the time, I was in Kyrgyzstan, which is one of the little Stan countries that is part of the former Soviet Union.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting to me was that when we had lunch with Chris and Mary, his mother, we were accompanied by the woman who used to be the ambassador from Kyrgyzstan to the United States. She is a good friend of ours. In fact, her sister and little son are with us in Salem. We've been kind of like a family for 6 years almost. And when the call came, I was actually in Kyrgyzstan on my way down to a place that had had some really awful ethnic violence a couple of years before, that actually had started on the date of our meeting in D.C. It was just all kind of interestingly converging.
Yeah.
She called me, Zamira, the ambassador, the former ambassador, and said Chris had died in a terror act. Okay, so she wasn't under any illusions.
Mm-hmm.
It
immediately called it a terror act.
Immediately. It was for that ambassador, former ambassador, it was a terror act. Mm-hmm. And, I thank God for my Facebook friends. I didn't have a way to communicate with anybody because I was off in a very mountainous area that didn't have constant communications ability. And my Facebook friends were keeping me informed and letting other people know things and praying for me, and it was really neat. And I really thank them for their availability at that time.
So you, knowing immediately what happened, it must have been frustrating or disturbing to see the narrative coming out of the White House, which was basically a false narrative.
Right. I hadn't been following the news just because I was off in a foreign country and wasn't always accessing my media, my social media. But when I found out that it, of course, wasn't the video, the unpleasant video, of course it wasn't that. And then everybody started covering up from the White House all the way through the State Department and on down. I was beginning to be really concerned that this wasn't going to be a situation where all Americans could pull together, just deal with the truth and go on and do something. It was just a political power play, kind of. It was done, it was the result of months of not listening to the actual requests from the ambassador, from other security people, from other people that were staffing facilities in Libya itself. All of those were being ignored because there was a political narrative to carry out. And there must have been something else, but they haven't told us what the other things are. They have just said nothing, really, for all these 4 years of investigations.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten any new information.
Not enough.
Yeah.
Certainly not enough.
Well, I'm going to fast forward now again to the Saturday, and it was an unexpected chance that you had to speak. We were counting some ballots, and there was some time going by, and all of a sudden I looked up and I saw you on the stage. I saw you talking to Chairman Bill Currier. Can you tell me what prompted you to get up there and speak, and then can you share a little bit about what you said to the people that were gathered at the ORP?
Yes. I had been thinking about this for several months, actually, watching the nomination process being carried out. And I need to say in the first place that I don't speak for my relatives. I just speak for myself.
Sure.
Chris's immediate family, mother, father, siblings, they have chosen a very dignified path, which is to focus on foundation work that would further his vision, which has been a long-standing passion of Chris's. And that's what they're focusing on. I'm less diplomatic, I suppose. And so there are things about Hillary Clinton that have really bothered me, even before all of this. Yeah. I just disagree with her policies, principles, and character anyway. But this is just one more thing. I can't let it be the main thing, but it is a thing. But as I considered all the Republicans running, who would be the one that I would rather see addressing these various issues, including the Benghazi matter, which hasn't been resolved and needs to be resolved, and in any normal time, people would seriously try to resolve it on all sides. This is not a normal time.
Yeah.
As I saw the candidates who would be able to address these properly, all the issues, over time, I allowed many to speak, but I decided, for me personally, that Ted Cruz had the best ability to represent the values that I hold, the principles upon which our nation was established, and to go forward as needed on these many issues, including the one that concerns our family, the Benghazi issue.
Right.
And then as I saw Donald Trump moving along, I have to admit, during the time that I lived in New York, I didn't really object to him that much. I mean, he was kind of a colorful guy,
Right.
had good buildings.
They were pretty. They were shiny.
Yeah, I didn't really object to him, but as I looked at him through the eyes of someone analyzing a potential president,
Yeah.
it was quickly obvious that he does not belong in the White House. And I think anybody who's honest, who isn't just trying to find a Republican to support, has to say, look, the guy's temperament, his character qualities, his moral failures, which are still matters of bragging to him, his business practices even, and his inflammatory style are absolutely the worst thing that we could have at this time, or any time for that matter. So as much as I will never support Hillary, I can't ever support Hillary. I can't ever support Trump either. I know there's a lot of Republicans who would disagree with me, who think, well, we've got to have somebody. He's the one. Let's get behind him. And my point is, let's look at something that's just been occupying my mind for quite some time, several months, which is, if we don't want Hillary, we can't just have Trump be the one. It's kind of like, and I'm being purposely hyperbolic, but it's kind of like trying to say, let's defeat Al-Qaeda by supporting ISIS. I know I'm being hyperbolic, but that's the comparison that came to mind.
Can you stick around through the next break?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to come back, and we'll be back talking more with Leslie McMillan.
Hey, anglers! The rivers are full of spring Chinook, and American Outdoors has every...
And now, more of the Joe Peterson Insurance Gators Radio Experience, presented by Lynn Benton Tractor on 1430 KYKN. And now, here's Gator and Denise.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Having a great conversation with Leslie McMillan. And I'm having the honor of just sitting here listening to you ladies chat, and then I realized, hey, I'm having a good time. Carry on. Carry on as you were, ladies.
Well, we were talking on the break, you had wanted to make another point, too, because you were talking to people who were running to be delegate. And so there are certain duties and responsibilities that delegates have. Why don't you speak to us a little bit about how you see that and what you see the role and responsibility of a delegate to the National Convention for the GOP?
Right. I was never a delegate, wasn't going to run for a delegate position, but I wanted people to understand that as delegates, they have authority and responsibility, perhaps far beyond what they realize. And I have read the whole book written by Curly Hogland. It's called Unbound, The Conscience of a Republican Delegate. And I really commend that book. It's very detailed, thoroughly documented, and I think it's eye-opening. The next ingredient to be mixed with that would be courage. And this is one of the other things that I've been thinking about over the past several months is who has the courage to do what's right, even when the powers that be are saying, no, 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 don't. And again, the Benghazi subplot, which has been carrying through now for 4 years, 2 elections, actually more, the interims were also somewhat Benghazi themed, but the point of Benghazi being a scandal still today was that the people in authority were just not willing to do what was necessary to save not only the people who died or who were in danger, but the the character of our country took a real blow because we learned things that we had never had to learn before from our leaders, which was just weakness, completely self-serving, absent without leave at the White House and State Department, all these things. And yet there were some people who were actually in the greatest danger, but there were some people on the ground in Libya or in Italy ready, or some other places ready to go in and do what they've always believed, always been trained to do, always had a passion for, which was to do their duty, follow the principles that they believed. And so some brave people really did that. Some of them died. Some of them have had movies made about them, and, you know, God bless them. And some of them, like Chris was there because he had a passion and a whole set of beliefs that he wanted to be basically a good American bringing good principles to people who never knew. That's what his whole life was all about. And these delegates can be like the ones who were brave, even when everybody else was saying stand down, or we can't, or we need to cover something, or we're going to hide behind something, or we're just going to lie about it, or we just have to take this guy because all of these things will never, ever, ever stand when public opinion, when the future commendations are handed out. None of those people will get commendations. But the delegates going this time, more than any delegate that I can think of, perhaps in the history of the Republican Party, have a responsibility and really the right to do what's necessary to give us a nominee that we can really support who would be very good for the country.
I'm hoping that message got across to the people that were in there listening. I know that there's a group that say, you know, he's the presumptive nominee. You have to do this. We're bound. You made a pledge. I hear that over and over again. You made a pledge. These other candidates made a pledge. You cannot go back on your pledge. I would back up just a little bit. Talking about what happened in Benghazi. Have you seen 13 Hours?
I didn't want to see it in the theater.
Yeah.
I debated about it. I just didn't feel like I could.
Yeah.
And when it comes into my Netflix or something, I will.
I'm hoping that a lot of the delegates will, if they've not already seen it, will watch it again too, because you talk about courage to do the right thing, knowing, standing in the face of sort of feckless leaders who don't do anything and then making a decision, I have to do the right thing. It's within my power to do the right thing. So that sounds like that's the kind of the message that you want to get across to the delegates. We are at a very precarious point in our nation's history.
We are, and to be the ones elected to do the thing that they were always supposed to do. I mean, delegates in America have authority. The grassroots people have authority. And to allow others to usurp that, well, it's happened over time here in America.
I think that's why we're here.
In many ways
yeah,
it has.
yeah.
But even at the convention level, and with all these state primaries and so forth, and Oregon being the first one to do that in 1912. But it was something that was gradually taken away from the delegates, and now we see that it's time to take it back. And you're not wrong to do it. You're not wrong to reverse a usurpation. And this is an absolutely critical time. We really don't have 4 more years. We really can't just say, well, 4 years later, do you see how everything's falling apart?
Yeah.
We need either to stand or just watch it all just go down the swirling vortex of Trumpism.
Well, and especially after what happened this weekend in Orlando and seeing the very real, clear, and present threats that we have. I mean, most of us have known that it's already here, that threat, ISIS, these attacks are here, but Orlando put a fine exclamation point on that. Indeed,
and if people are analyzing leaders, I just go back to that theme that's been in my head for a while. If they analyze leaders and they see that they're not naming the real problem, they're self-serving, they are weak in some ways, and inflammatory in other ways, in either case very, very unhelpfully so. Nothing's going to get better with that kind of leadership.
Yeah.
So we need somebody that's calm, cool, collected, wise, has the right core principles, and the things that we say that we have admired about the founders of America, we need to have that back again. Don't expect anything different if we elect the kind of people that are currently, the presumptive nominees.
Well, you make a very clear, compelling, sober case, and I hope that people take that to heart. Delegates have a responsibility. They are in somewhat of a leadership role in this respect. They are going back and representing you and me at the convention to pick that nominee. So I hope that on last Saturday when you spoke it live to everybody that they understood it, and I hope today that they hear it as well.
I'd just like to say one more thing, that
Sure.
the delegates in Cleveland this year will be roughly 2,500 of the most powerful people on the planet for that few days.
Mm-hmm.
They need to take their responsibility very, very seriously and not to let anyone take it away from them.
Amen.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, thank
Leslie
you.
McMillan,
Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
stopping by. Some, as Denise, you said, sobering comments that are well worth hearing.
Absolutely.